New laws take effect in our state, the most controversial banning homeless people from sleeping in public. But the law also promises more resources for those who are homeless. So how will this new rule be implemented across South Florida? One city taking its own steps to comply, and that's Fort Lauderdale Mayor Dean Trantalis. He is here with us today. Hey, Mayor.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. So there are an estimated 1,600 people living on the streets in Broward County. Some say that is kind of a conservative estimate. About half of those people live in Fort Lauderdale. Explain the steps that your city has taken to comply with this law.
So this past session, the state legislature decided that it was going to get tough on homelessness. So their way of getting tough was to allow cities to ban homelessness, ban sleeping overnight in public places. They didn't provide any resources in order to allow for sheltering and so forth, or any other kinds of social services that normally are associated with trying to help people get out of their homeless situation. Instead, they said that we can set up encampments that are city or county sponsored, but again, no money for that, just that they allow for that.
And that you can set up encampments, but that is really just a temporary fix. That is
exactly.
Not a
it's
permanent
not a solution. Right. But the other thing, the kicker about this statute that most people don't realize is that in January, a private citizen can sue the city if, once they give notice to the city and a few days pass and we don't comply to try to eliminate a homeless encampment, whether it be multiple individuals or a single individual, then we can be sued. Now, what that means is that there will be a whole legion of enterprising attorneys who are going to go out there and not really help homeless people, but just line their pockets with attorney's fees, which the statute allows for. That's not a solution. The city of Fort Lauderdale, on the other hand, we are now going to enact, hopefully, in our next meeting next week, not just to not allow evening encampments, but 24/7. The goal for that is to really take charge of the situation, trying to make sure that people feel comfortable in their own city, in their own neighborhoods, on their own streets, that they can go to the beach without encountering people who they feel are threatening to them.
Because arresting somebody for being homeless, that really is a last resort at this point.
It is, and it's not a solution, but it's the last resort.
So what will this look like when this law is enacted in just a few days, when it comes into effect? How will this look like? Will there be people going out and sort of approaching some folks on the street saying, hey, here are the resources if you want to sleep here or there? And what resources are there available?
Well, we do that anyway. We do that anyway. We've been doing that long before the statute was passed. We have tripled our outreach resources with additional police officers, civilian personnel. We've been doing this for years, okay? Unfortunately, the numbers keep creeping up. So the situation would have been worse had we not had those resources already in place. But right now, we need to work with the county, with the sheriff, to provide additional shelter space and maybe even set aside space in the county jail away from the regular inmates to provide shelter, a place for people to get out from the elements. Look, we just almost had a hurricane here. You know, we need to be good about this. We need to do the right thing. And so we're trying to work with the sheriff's department, with the county, to see how we can move forward and try to eliminate the condition that we now have in the city.
Well, there has to be a balance too, because you want to comply with the law, but you also want to be compassionate. The city, as you know, has had its share of controversies with the homeless population, banning feeding people in public parks, the homeless encampment downtown being taken down. So how do you do this in a compassionate way where you might have people who say, I don't want to leave?
Well, the thing is, we've tried the compassionate way and we'll still try to follow that path. But we also have to be a little stricter. You know, homelessness is not a lifestyle option and it should not be condoned in our city or any city. So the city is going to have to get a little tougher, a little stronger. And I think that we're prepared to do that because people have a right to live in their public spaces without the interference of homeless people trying to take over. And we have a situation now where people are afraid to go on the beach, they're afraid to go into public parks. We see homeless people sleeping in alleys, and I even see people, you know, we had a panhandling ordinance several years ago with a federal court struck down saying it was unfair to the panhandlers. I mean, we need help from every government resource. We can't be struck down because we're trying to help people help themselves. We need collaboration, not competition.
Do you have enough beds and enough shelters for the people who are currently living on the streets in Fort Lauderdale?
Actually, we don't, and that's why we need the help of the county. Now, the city has reached out. We have reached out to our neighboring cities, say, hey, let's see if we can collaborate. We haven't really gotten much response from that. We just now getting conversation started with the county, but we're going to just have to take charge. We're going to have to move ahead without anybody else. We have solutions, we have opportunities. We're going to talk about buying with what they call pallet homes.
So I was going to ask you about
Yes.
that, the discussion about building pallet homes in an unincorporated area bordering Plantation. That may spark some controversy.
Pembroke Park, Florida. In March, Governor Ron DeSantis signed HB 1365, https://www.flsenate.gov/bill/2024/1365 into law prohibiting the homeless from camping on city streets, sidewalks, and public parks in Florida. The new law, which goes into effect on Tuesday, also directs the Florida Department of Children and Families to authorize campsites with restrooms and access to treatment for substance abuse and mental health. During this week in South Florida on Sunday, Dean Trantalis, the mayor of Fort Lauderdale, said the state did not provide local governments with funding to implement the law. He said the city will have to be stricter and spend taxpayers' money to buy temporary emergency shelters built on construction pallets to house the homeless. It's mobile and we can move it to different parts of wherever the locations may be, Trantalis said. We talked about putting it on some city property. During this week in South Florida, Stephen Miner, the mayor of Miami Beach, said his city pays for about 89 beds daily and can add to that if necessary. He said city officials already have a similar law that he supports, so he praised the new state law as progressive. Sleeping on the streets is not safe, Miner said. The city also has a homeless outreach center, https://www.miamibchfl.gov/city-hall/housing-and-community-development/homeless-outreach/homeless services, with a team marketed to be focused on an assessment-driven approach. The center is next to City Hall, along 17th Street between Convention Center Drive and Meridian Avenue. People could literally just walk in, Miner said. The Outreach Center is an investment in rehabilitation. Miner said the Miami Beach Police Department has a police officer who is open about having been homeless for years. He said that despite his example, some homeless people just don't want the help and end up in jail. It's tough love, but ultimately the public spaces are for the public and we're going to keep people safe, Miner said.